Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for this interview of Magnify Your Impact. And today I'm really excited to be interviewing Jamie Waller. And what I'm most interested in talking about, Jamie, today, which would be great for me to learn from you and the audience, is, how, and you've probably been asked this question so much, how do you take all of your learnings and I don't know if this is the right frame or not, but you've broken through a lot of stuff and made a real success of your life in so many different ways. And that's really valuable because we all go through rubbish times. We all go through difficulty in lots of different ways. And so what will be really valuable for us to learn from you today is to have to say, okay, well, that was tough. And now I'm going to use this to make my life better and better and better. And what you've done that is, to me, even more impressive is you've gone full circle and said, okay, well, at times it hasn't been great, and at times it's been amazing for yourself. And not only have you grown a commercial career that's been very successful, but also you're now scoped out an opportunity for you to say, how do I help other people? Which is very impressive in itself. So with no further ado, I'd love to hand over to you, Jamie. Just give us a potted history as to what your background's been and where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Craig. So, I'll try and keep this brief, but you and I spoke before this call. I grew up in Bethnal Green in East London. Most people will be aware of Bethnal Green today because it's got a beautiful flower market and it's quite a trendy place to hang out and some good clubs at the end of the road in Shoreditch, etc. It wasn't quite like that. I was born in '79, so sort of early '80s boy in Bethnal Green. Bethnal Green was a tough place to grow up, It was a place that you had to really stand out for yourself to get by. Otherwise you would just get bullied, and bullying can have long lasting effects, and life was tough, but not just for me, for my parents too. And what I didn't quite appreciate at such a young age, sort of 5 or 6, was the difficulties my parents were having in their relationship. So my father was an alcoholic. He was on regular occasions aggressive towards my mum, and that was painful. As a very young child, I remember sort of the street flashing blue and white with police lights when they would turn up, early hours of the morning and drag my father out kicking and screaming, and he would be fighting with them all in the street, and they would put him in the back of a police van. He would go away, and then sort of 3 or 4 days later, he would come back a changed man, because he wouldn't be locked up for 3 or 4 days, but he'd be locked up for the night and thrown out. And then my mum would say, I'm not having you back. And then a few bunches of flowers and a few apologies later, and he would come back, and he would be the best dad in the world for the next 2 months before he just repeated everything he did before. But I was really lucky. I had what can only be described as just the best mom in the world, and she was 100% focused on me. I was, she later said in life I was her life, and I honestly believe that. She was absolutely dedicated to making me the best person I could be, which isn't easy when you've got an abusive husband about, and we didn't have much. I mean, we never went without. I should point that out. We lived above a shop in Bethnal Green in a small 2-bedroom flat where my mum remained until she passed just 10 years ago. But we never went without. My mum and dad were really good at managing money, and so everything I wanted, I got. You might not have had the best of everything, but you had something. If you wanted a sandwich, you might have a crisp sandwich rather than a prawn sandwich, but you got a sandwich. And yes, my family were very good. They were very resourceful like that. And although my dad was an alkie, he was always he always worked and always provided money. But at a very early age, my mum went to a local fete in London Fields, which is just around the corner in Hoxton, and saw a charity there, which was a motorcycle display team called the Imps. It was once called the Hackney Adventure Project. And the Hackney Adventure Project was all about how do you take children from the inner estates of Hackney and give them the opportunity to visit the countryside of a weekend. So what they used to do is they used to have a residence boarding school that had an empty building every weekend, and they would take them off there and they would sort of run through the woods, et cetera, and ride motorbikes. And that ended up leading into becoming a fully fledged motorcycle display team. So you can imagine, I was 5 and I'm stood at this fete and I'm like, this is amazing. And my mum, who was a very nervous character, even until she died, she was never really one of confidence, managed to build the confidence to go up and speak to the people about this team. And she said, you know, what's it all about? My son loves it. And they said, well, it's for children like your son, and you can apply. So my mum applied, and what happened is about 40 of you went off for a 2-week selection course once a year. And of that 40, about 7 or 8 succeeded. And I remember going off, and at 5 years of age, going off for a few weeks is quite tough. You know? So
absolutely.
Mixed emotions. I wanted to do it, but also didn't quite understand if it was my mum trying to get rid of me, and you know, it was tough to completely understand. But one thing I do know is that when I got back, I wanted to join, and it was a long couple of months waiting for the decision, and then I got the decision that I was accepted as a member. And this team changed my life, because what it meant is that every Friday until Sunday I went away. So Friday night I went to the Imps, Sunday night I came back, and then during the week I was at school. So my mum later told me that it was her way of getting me away from the disruptive relationship she had. I didn't see it that way at the time, but I just loved it. And the Imps, I was there for 11 years. So you can't join before you're 5, and you must leave when you're 16. And I was one of few people to do the full term. But the Imps was fantastic for me because it gave me structure, and it gave me something outside of Bethnal Green. And Bethnal Green was great for me too, because it taught me to be who I am. But, you know, a lot of my friends that I grew up with in Bethnal Green, by the time I was 16, 2 of my friends had died. Some of them were already completely addicted to heroin. And I think at least 3 of them were in young offenders in Feltham, you know. It was a tough old place to grow up. And I managed to avoid most of that. And I believe that one of the big drivers was the charity was being taken away, because it wasn't necessarily what the charity did. It was the opportunities to see that there was other people from different backgrounds. You know, I saw people being delivered in different cars to the Imps. So I saw that some people had better cars than others. When we drove along the motorway to put on a show in Norfolk or something, I would see that there were houses that were nicer and that had their own driveways compared to Bethnal Green. So all of these emotions gave me, I guess, the freedom to dream. You know, I would sit in a coach driving up and down the motorways, dreaming of what is possible if you get out of Bethnal Green. And you know, it sounds rough to say that, but I wanted to get out of Bethnal Green. I wanted to go on and deliver stuff. And I was, you know, and I'll fast forward a bit, but I was really fortunate. At 16, I left the Imps. I went back to Bethnal Green for a short period of time, didn't really get on well. I fought a lot, and because I didn't really fit in. And then I got out quickly. And I got out quickly, set up a window cleaning business. I say a window cleaning business. I went around cleaning people's windows, and then I ended up employing a couple of people to help me. And then I sold that business. So at 16, I started my first business, and I sold it in the back of a classified ads newspaper called the South London Press. I'd gone over to Woolwich right now. When you go up in Bethnal Green, you don't go south of the water. You know, you actually, if you get caught going south of the water, someone wants to beat you up. But I thought actually going south of the water was a good way to get away from Bethnal Green for good. So I had a window cleaning round over in South East London, sold it for £6,000 in the back of the classified ads section of the South London Press, and used that money to set up a car yard. Did car sales for a couple of years, and then found my way into the debt recovery industry. I say found, I had a car yard that was doing very well, but Transport for London came along and painted double red lines outside most people's shops on main roads. And the business went from doing sort of £1,000 a week, which at the age of 17, 18 is a lot. We're talking 1998, £1,000 a week, to doing nothing. And I couldn't pay the rent. So I closed the business, and at that stage, debt recovery was a real big thing, because all of these double red lines created Transport for London saying, well, if you don't pay these fines, we're going to pass them on to these debt collectors. And I started to look into that, because I thought, well, you know what? I grew up in Bethnal Green. I can handle myself. I'm comfortable with that. But also I was a good salesman. And I thought that to be a good debt collector, to be a good bailiff, you had to be a good salesman. And that's what I did. I went and got a job as a self-employed bailiff. at 18, and that was rough. That was tough work. You know, we were going into housing estates in southeast London to collect money off of some not so nice people. And I was there for a couple of years, ended up setting up my own company because I was disgusted by the way the industry operated. You know, I thought that they were terrorizing people for money, and I wanted to do it right. I thought that if you were representing government to collect money, taxation a lot of the times, you should do it with a sort of an element of elegance. Actually, it's quite funny. The FT interviewed me at one stage in my career and did this sort of big full-page spread and called me sort of the elegant enforcer. And I guess that's what, you know, most of my career has been spent doing since, which is how do you do a very difficult task, which is without enforcement, compliance declines. People deserve to be paid what they are owed, but not at any cost. And I set up a company called JBW Group that went on to be the second largest in the UK, the largest privately owned. And I sold that in 2016. And since then, I set up another business and sold it, Hito, within financial services technology space. And today I own another couple of businesses in that space. And I'm also, I have my own investment fund and own 13 other companies where I own sort of a significant minority stake.
That's quite a story. And it's interesting listening to it because it's, obviously, as you've talked to me, there's so many different questions that come up for me and visuals of you paint quite a graphic picture of it, of what it was like as you were growing up. You've now really started to support charities, Jamie. So just give us an idea of the Prince's Trust and the other charities and what your view is on that and how you give back.
So yeah, I mean, so it's good to start with the IMPS, actually, the charity that I was part of as a child, because during my career, the IMPS fell into some financial difficulties because they lost their main sponsor. If you think for a motorcycle display team, the biggest asset they have is motorcycles. And Honda had supported them for 30 odd years. But Honda then split up from being Honda Global to Honda Europe, Honda North America, et cetera, And when that happened, they just pulled the sponsorship overnight. And their excuse was they wasn't actually even aware that they were sending 40 motorcycles a year to this team. And it had to stop. And that was really difficult. So the team, about 5 years later, was facing administration. And I went in and helped them out at that stage from a business point of view. So I went in and tried to restructure it. We did a public fundraise with the support of some of the large publications like Motorcycle News, re-engage with the ex-members. The community is huge, right? So the IMPS, the IMPS has produced ex-members like me, multi-millionaire entrepreneurs. It produced ex-members that are now Premiership footballers that are multi-millionaires. And so I was, you know, I wanted to build an environment that we could re-engage with those people because on the basis that they would probably help. And that was really successful. So it did. And then I took a chairman role at the IMPS. And actually, when I sold JBW, my wife and I was sort of sat over lunch and this is our moment to give back. What do we want to do? I said to my wife, I really want to dedicate everything I can to the IMPS because, you know, without it, I'm not too sure I could be sat here. We were sat at an Ivy Market Grill or something, you know, I'm not too sure I could be sat here drinking this champagne, eating this steak if it wasn't for them. So we decided to become their main sponsor to replace the sponsorship that they lost. So we are the main sponsor of the IMPS motorcycle display team and have committed for a long period of time to continue that. But also I help them and represent them from a business point of view on how do they maintain their relativeness in an industry that, you know, the charity sector is there's a lot of competition out there for fundraising and stuff like that. And then during that conversation, actually, I also thought it was important that we did more than one thing. I wanted to support more than one charity. And we have two children, 4 and 3. And this was just when they were sort of, you know, 1 and just over 0. And when I was a child and in the IMPS, the Prince's Trust were a donor to the IMPS. The Prince's Trust used to donate money. And I was keen to do something in entrepreneurialism or or enterprise, and that it was aware of the Prince's Trust. So I contacted Prince's Trust and said, look, you used to donate money to enable me to improve my life as a child. I would now like to give back. So to begin with, I did sort of about 1.5 years of inspirational talking and became a donor for the Prince's Trust. But in October 2019, I became chairman of the Prince's Trust Enterprise Network, which is a network of entrepreneurs creating entrepreneurs traditionally from sort of less valued backgrounds, so disadvantaged backgrounds or similar backgrounds to myself, and that is just great. Love it, and the children love it too. So my 4 and 3-year-old regularly attend events with me. They get up on stage with me, and they participate in sort of inspirational talks and stuff like that.
Cool.
It's a real family affair. My wife runs it all from an administrative background.
Yeah.
In the background, which is great.
Yeah, really great. So tell me, because I love that it's an amazing story. What does it feel like it must give you so much satisfaction. It must be so rewarding to support the imps in the way that you do. When you had that lunch, and you thought, I've got an opportunity to be able to really make a difference to these guys. That must be a great feeling.
Yeah, the feeling, and the feeling never ends, right? So one of the things with business, the feelings, there's a thing in business that I always say about celebrate the small wins, because in business, there's always crap around the corner that's about to happen. But also the wins are actually quite short-lived. It's like, oh, we've won a new contract. Oh, we've sold another business. But with the work you do with a deep purpose, the wins never actually die. So they go, there's spikes, but they never go down to a level of zero. They always maintain quite high. So, a good example of that is during this crazy time of COVID-19. So the first thing I did when COVID-19 was becoming a real issue and people were being locked down is the founder of the Imps is now 80 and, gave me so much through my life. And immediately I set up a WhatsApp group with him on, let's stay in contact every day, because this is the first time in your life that you've never done anything. And I want to keep you motivated. I want to keep you moving.
Right, yeah.
And actually, he's yet to know this, but I've got a call with him this evening. I'm about to present to him an idea that I write the Imps story. So I published a book just over 1 year ago, and this is going to be my second book, where I publish a story of how one man has taken nearly 3,000 children off the streets of East London.
Yeah, amazing.
Significant opportunity in life.
Oh, what a great idea. So, Jamie, just talk to me about your psychology, because, I'm over the last 17 years, predominantly, I've been fascinated in our emotional needs psychology and how we tick internally with regards to, how our brain works from a neuroscience perspective, but just, nature, nurture, and what is it that makes us human? And I'm never going to find the answer, but it's great. Yeah, but it's great to explore it, right?
Absolutely.
And so, what do you, when it's got tough, or when you're in a difficult situation, what do you tell yourself, or what happens inside your body that says, do you know what, I'm going to keep going now? Or do you know what, I'm going to make one more phone call? Or actually, I'm not going to let that bullying stop me helping that friend down the street. Or I'm going to get up again and I'm going to do it better next time. What is the question, or what is the thought, or what is the muscle inside you that says, I'm going to do this?
So for me, I think and I'm sure one thing I would say is it's probably developed over time. But I would say more today is sort of a 41-year-old, more balanced individual with a family. It's always that there is always someone worse off, right? Yeah. So I can be having the world. I had a really bad day yesterday, actually. We found out about a couple of big contract losses, and, COVID-19 is tough on business. And take an hour out and pretend to be a dragon with my children on the floor.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you go, wow, right? The real value of life is not that I've just lost a couple of contracts.
No.
But that's, you can't tell a 16-year-old that or an 18-year-old that, because they're in a different position in life. And I would say if there were some notable sort of internal feelings through life, that my first one was to, without a doubt, was to make money, was to succeed, was to get out of what I considered not a fortunate life back in Bethnal Green. And then there was this huge emotion to impress my mum, to be somebody that my mother would be proud of. And that really drove me, because it not only drove me to make money, it drove me to make money in the right way. It drove me not to go and steal stuff like some of my friends for success, but to go about it in the right way. And then as time's gone on, you know, I'm not frightened to admit it, some of my biggest desires that have kept me going is to get people back, you know, get the bullies back. How do you pay some, you know, earlier on in my career, I was stabbed by someone, and how do I pay them back? Do I pick up a knife and go and stab them, or do I compete with them and steal their business? I decided the latter, and it's probably a good decision, right? One equals going to prison, one equals having a successful life and continuing to live it, feeling better about yourself. But those are pivotal moments. You could have made the wrong decision easily.
Talk to me more about what makes those moments successful. Is it a question that you ask yourself? Do you have, because we all have routines in our head, right? We learn through, we're conditioned. So can you give us some advice as to what you tell yourself, or when you stop yourself? So that's a powerful metaphor, not a very nice one, but a powerful metaphor is there's a knife sitting there, or there's an opportunity to get on the phone and get another customer sitting there.
Yeah.
There's got to be a thought or a question, or your mum an image or something that says, okay, be clever here, Jamie. Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
What do I need to do here? What do you think's behind that? Is it something that you were born with? Is it something that, no, life's worth more than this, I value myself? What is it that helps you to make all these? Because you made a string of good decisions. You made some bad ones, because we all do, but you've made some good ones. What is that?
I don't know if I can put my finger on it. I mean, you know, without a doubt, time, right? There's no way on earth anybody couldn't support this, that a decision are made immediately versus a decision made in 10 minutes time or an hour's time or 24 hours time. The one that's delayed is always going to be the right decision. It might be that it's the same decision. But time is everything. And actually, I didn't always know that, but I probably always implemented it. Sometimes not in the best ways. So I remember, for example, the evening I was stabbed. My immediate thing I did, I was frightened of going to the police because I thought I was aware of the people that did it, and I was worried about the implications. So I taped up my shoulder with electrical tape, loads and loads of this electrical tape, 2 big rolls of electrical tape to stop it from bleeding and try and seal the wound. And then I sat on the floor and drank probably nearly a bottle of whiskey and cried for hours until early hours in the morning, and then went to bed, and then woke up and I reset and decided on how I was going to deal with it. Terribly hungover, unfortunately, but you know, at least after a significant period of downtime. I say significant, you know, 7 or 8 hours of downtime. Now, I could have made a decision there and then. And actually, I did run after the people that did it. And, you know, sometimes fate plays a part, right? Because what would happen if I would have caught up with them? I don't know. I didn't have a knife. But, you know, things spiral out of control. So sometimes you're not in control of that. But, you know, as I've matured over the years, I've realized that time is actually just the best thing. I very frequently, I would say at least once a week, you will hear me say to someone, I'm going to sleep on that. Yeah. Because it's just the right thing to do. And actually, I would say that 80% of the time, I make the same decision I would have made immediately. And that's difficult because then you have to train yourself not to give up on time, because if 80% of the time you come to anyway, so you have to be disciplined. And one of the great things about the charity that I was part of as a child, it was a military-based charity. So I knew everything about discipline. At the age of 5, I had kit inspections, room inspections. I had to know how to march, stand to attention, squad up, etc., etc. So discipline has always been a part of my life. And I'm quite good at maintaining that discipline with myself, so even now as a 41-year-old man, I get up every morning, I do my exercise, I do, I can compartmentalize things very well. And I think I do that in a time of crisis too. Not always successfully, right? And that's the big one for me, is that time to reset, and sometimes it's not even to consider it, right? Sometimes time to go and get drunk, time to pretend to be a lion or a dragon on the floor with your children, time to go and have a glass of wine with your wife. It doesn't necessarily need to be to go and sit in a dark room. Some of my friends go, I need to go and take some time out and meditate and think about this. I'm like, just take some time out. Time out is meditation, right?
Yeah.
Meditation can be done with a glass of wine with your wife or with your significant other. So that's a big one for me. And like I said, I wouldn't have been able to explain it to you in such a way at the age of 18 or 19, because that time was just going to get drunk, go to another party or something like that. But you can definitely pinpoint those pivotal moments back to just taking the time to think.
That's really valuable. So with regards to your businesses and growing and developing, there's many people, I'm sure, listening to this that are in a place where coronavirus has come along and that they might have been doing swimmingly before and now they're not, or that they've been struggling up until now with their business or with their charity or social enterprise. So just give us an indication about what's your advice with regards to how to leverage your resources, how to become successful from having very little to start with, because you've started stuff. You haven't inherited a business or bought one. You've started stuff in tough environments and make them work. So what are your 3 pieces of advice to being successful in business or in fundraising?
So my first and probably the most significant for me is to have a purpose, right? Because, we set up a business in September last year. We're now in May, mid-COVID-19 pandemic, right? That business started in September, was doing roughly about £500,000 in recurring revenue in February. It's now doing £0, but has about a £75,000 burn rate. When we meet at that business virtually about, well, what does this mean for the business? I'm very adamant that, do we still have the purpose we had when we were doing £500,000? Yeah. Well, then we've still got our business, right? Now, I'm not discounting that it's going to be bloody tough for us to survive. We applied for a CBILS loan. It was refused. So we're going to have to cut with asking people to take 20% reductions and all of this stuff. But having a purpose, and this is why charities are quite fortunate during a crisis time like this, because their purpose is core to their business. And some people don't have that, but having that deep purpose on, well, we're here for a bigger tomorrow, so let's just try and work out how we ride this out. And it will be painful, but even in the worst case scenario, some companies will go into administration and come out the other side, but come out the other side with the purpose. And as long as you have that purpose, we'll go on and make things successful again. So I think that's my biggest thing, because I went through a brief time after selling JBW of absolutely losing my purpose, and it was horrendous. It was horrible. I was a 38-year-old multi-millionaire with a yacht, a big house, flying private jets around the country, but I had no purpose. And it was a wasted life. And I honestly mean that. And I had everything. I had 2 young children. I was spend all the time with my family that one could dream of. But I didn't have a purpose. And without a purpose, I didn't have a reason to be excited. So purpose is everything for me. And then the second thing I think is to continue to learn. So I mentioned earlier on, I didn't have a great opportunity at school and stuff. I was dyslexic. Dyslexia wasn't really recognized in late 80s, early 90s. And I left school prior to taking any GCSEs, etc. But what I've done later on in life is I've studied business at Cranfield. I've studied business at Stanford. I was the only person ever to be accepted at London Business School MBA program without GCSE. I love learning.
Yes.
This is the most amazing opportunity we have been given to learn because one, we all have a bit more time, but two, it's being given to us for free. So many people are going, COVID-19, let's give people material, let's give people stuff for free. This this video cast, podcasts, everything, just go online and suck some of it up because it really means everything. And then I think the final one for me is really about values. And I'm not one to keep talking about values because I prefer purpose, but purpose without values can be difficult, right? Because if your purpose is just to make money, you don't connect it to some values. I know of some businesses that might well do some horrible, dodgy things just to get by. So that's an unfair environment. So you need to make sure that you've got true values. And these aren't values. I'm not talking about, innovative, progressive, the things that you write on your office. What's core to you? Where's the line between what you expect and what people deliver? And that has to be, for instance, mine, because most of my career I've spent working in debt, just is hugely around fairness. It's hugely around fairness. So if I can't have people around me that live that true value of being fair to each other and being kind, treating others like they're human beings rather than just a product of society, then I can't get by. And I think you have those core things. It doesn't get you through these issues without financial pain or without pain, but it gets you through them with a level of sanity that others might not get through them with, and that's really important.
When you look at those three elements of purpose, lifelong learning, and your values, just give us a definition of, for everybody listening to this, what's the definition of purpose? What is purpose?
So, for instance, my purpose is to continue, my true purpose in life is to continue to create employment. That is the thing I'm most proud of. And it took me a while to realize that when I've sold businesses, when I build businesses, all of that stuff's just a product of what my purpose is. My product is to create employment, because if I create employment, I'm creating solid family lives and foundations for people. I'm creating the ability for people to purchase their own homes. I'm creating the ability to send their children to school. So my purpose, strangely, if you were to pick up loads of publications or read stuff about me, you might go, is it about, ethical debt recovery? Is it about entrepreneurialism? Is it about fairness? Actually, it's about creating employment. That is my true purpose in life. And I never want to stop that. I want to leave this earth employing loads and loads of people, because that, to me, is a good feeling.
Yes.
The purpose of Roy, the owner of the Imps Motorcycle Display Team, is to take children out of disadvantaged backgrounds, give children a view of an opportunity. He doesn't take them and brush them off and say, there you go, there's a better life. He just takes them to an environment and shows them there's a better life, and then sees what impact that has on them for them to make a better life for themselves. What a great single purpose to have, right? Show people that there's more than what they're currently seeing. Yeah. So my view of a purpose is it's not always evident. And I said I had a difficult year when I sold JBW, and I took on a coach, and I really worked on trying to find what my purpose was, because I thought I had lost it. I thought it was about debt. I thought it was about being fair to debtors, not people terrorizing the public. And yes, there's a lot of my values are based on
around that.
But my purpose is to create opportunity for people for employment, and that's what I love. And I think so. It's not easily found, which is sort of unfortunate, but also really exciting, because it's an opportunity, right? If you take the opportunity to find what your purpose is, and I tell you, when you find it, wow, it's like being given a Tesla battery. in your body, right?
Yeah.
You live a better you've got a better life.
Yes.
The energy levels just spike like this.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had a year where on the face of it, I had everything. But my Tesla battery was an old Mini 900 engine, right?
Yeah.
I was like chugging along. A friend of mine's writing a book at the moment. I should mention this, it's a great title. Hopefully he gets around to getting it published, but it's called The 40-Year Apprentice. And I just love the title, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a strong believer. We spend the first 40 years really defining ourselves for the next 40. Now, if we can bring that forward through tech, through learning, through communication, like we're doing now, and the people that will watch this, imagine if we can make that 40-year apprentice the 30-year apprentice. Because I'm a much better person at 41 than I was at 38. Much better at 41 than I was at 21. But imagine if we can start to decrease the apprenticeship period.
Yes.
Yes, that equals a better world, and that's got to be amazing for us all.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you know, my sense of that is that you know, you kind of answered it now for me, because you know, people who I have a belief that everybody has a purpose within them. It's about finding it first off internally, but need sometimes some help outside of that to be able to drill down and find our purpose.
Yeah.
So can you just quickly give us some clues as to people who are saying, well, what's my purpose? You know, I'm sitting here, I'm 52 or I'm 36 or I'm 18, you know, and I need to find my purpose. Is where do they, you know, I've got my thoughts on this, but I think it's really valuable. Where do you feel that people need to focus more in order to find out? You got a coach, which is great. How do people find their purpose more?
It's a tough one, right? Because I've got close family members that say to me, you know, but I'm not too sure I have a purpose. And everyone has a purpose, right? We just don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it took me 40 years, and it took me actually a significant career break. You know, forced sold business, nothing to do to really work out. I'd lived it for so many years, and I think that's the key part. I think most people will probably realize that they're already living their purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think you've got to start, and that's why I've got a lot of friends and stuff that, you know, I talk about having coaches. I've had 3 coaches in my career. All of them are good friends today. None of them are my coach anymore. Really important to move from coach to friend. And not maintain that. But having a coach, I don't dress it up how you want. Coach, counselor, someone a shoulder to lean on, someone to talk to, mentor. That's really important, because they can start to ask you questions to make you dig a bit deeper into what your purpose might be. So I think, you know, I'm not saying everyone rush off and pay for a coach, and also warn people there's a lot of bad coaches out there, right?
Yeah.
I read a statistic this week, it's 83,000 life coaches or something registered on LinkedIn in the UK. I mean, that's a bit scary, you know, so don't rush off and find a coach. But find someone to talk to. And also, what a coach does really well, or a counselor or someone like that, which your friends and family could do equally as well, is they ask you questions about what they see in you, right? And that's a real key. It's quite difficult to sit and ask yourself that, you know. So what motivated me when I was at the most happiest point? What really annoyed me when I was at that most saddest point? It's those bits that bring you around to really understanding what your purpose is. So I'm not too sure, you know, I think there's no single page strategy for it. Otherwise it would be for sale on Amazon, I'm sure. You know, it's a finding thing, but the reality is it's already there. So you're looking for something that's already there, which in some circumstances is more difficult, right?
Yeah, well, frustrating for people as well, right? So yeah, absolutely. And it's having the courage to look within and to introspect as well, and to really question yourself, which is I
tell you, a bunch of people that really struggle with it, and I've witnessed it being a father, are mums. You know, the women go from having a sort of purpose, whatever that purpose was, pre-children, to then being forced to be 100% enclosed into that caring bubble of bringing up children. And then they go through this difficult stage. And I'm not saying all, but I've seen it on a significant amount of times, that they go through this difficult stage of questioning what they are about anymore, because they're so consumed in bringing up children. And what you find is a lot of men go around going, well, your purpose is to be a mum. Your purpose is that you're doing a great job. You know, that's not, you can't tell someone what their purpose is. They're inside. So I think, if you ever want to learn how to find your purpose, I think first thing we should do is survey a bunch of mums that have come out having found their purpose. Because I think, strangely, they all go through it, and they're forced to all go through it at a certain time, and they probably know the answer more than I know it. But
and so finally, Jamie, it would be great to understand, because you've built a lot of teams, and you've been around a lot of teams, and the first team that you were around was pretty graphic for you. So if there was one piece of advice you can leave us with regards to what creates a winning culture within a team.
I hate to go back to the same old thing, but it's having a purpose, right? If I think about when I set up a bailiff business at age 19, 20, we were competing against some big businesses and some not very nice individuals. We were about 6 or 7 people. I owned it, but I employed 5 or 6 other people. We were a bunch of teenagers, but we were a bunch of teenagers with a purpose. And I have to tell you, I would rather go into battle with a bunch of teenagers with a purpose than a bunch of 50-year-olds that think they know it all. And it was that we couldn't lose. And it's that desire that I take into every business that I've done ever since. Is that if you've got a team that all believe in something, it's not going to be the same purpose, right? Because my team can't be expected for their purpose to be to create employment. Their purpose might be, so I'll give you a good example. My first team, their purpose was, I think, and I've never asked them all, but I think their purpose was to support Jamie, who is being terrorized by these people. And because I had them supporting me, and my purpose was to prove that this industry could do things better and differently, combine those purposes made a bunch of teenagers with a purpose, and that's vicious. That's really, you can achieve anything. So call it values, sort of the same thing. Values, I'm a believer, purpose is everything. Values keep you within the restrictions to make sure you don't do anything that's
you're going towards your purpose. Absolutely.
But purpose is everything. And I think I'm happy to speak on that subject with confidence, because I went through such a period of not having it. So I think I'm qualified to give that advice, that if you lose it, it's a miserable, horrible place.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're qualified to speak about that. So thank you so much, Jamie. It's been really valuable talking to you. I really appreciate your time. It's been great. There's been about, I want to distill it all, but there's been about 8 or 9 big highlights. And, obviously, for me, right in the center of it is your purpose, but lifelong learning, keep going, being around the right people, never giving up. There's so much here that's going to be valuable. And what I was thinking of that is super valuable that I'm definitely going to give people from this interview is, I think there's a huge amount of youngsters that need to listen to this too, not just all about oldies, because what you just said the last 3 minutes is profound for, I just thought a group of 18-year-olds listening to that's a massive learning.
And I truly believe it. And if we support young people, and like I said, if we can reduce that apprenticeship time from 40 years to 30 years to 20 years, then we end up with a bunch of more wiser people that are giving back into the community and doing wonderful things. And that's just good for the world, right?
100%. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Speak soon.
Take care.